Welcome back to another TVGP Spoilercast. It's been a while, and that happy music that just played means we're talking about the happiest game of the year, Doki Doki Literature Club.
I hate you, Boston.
I know, I'm very sorry. Joining me, I'm your host, Boston. Joining me is Moonpir.
Hello.
We should start with the same warning that the game does.
Yes, definitely.
If you're under 13, you should tune out now, but hey, I was under 13 on the internet, so I wouldn't listen to me either. Listen to this other one, though. We will be talking about the game's very heavy themes. If you are disturbed by such stuff, or you're suffering from anxiety or depression, you might want to tap out. Certainly don't play the game, and maybe don't listen to this episode. I won't take it personally. I certainly understand. So, let's start spoiling. It's been a while since we've done a Spoilercast, but let's start spoiling probably what I would consider 2017's most surprising game.
Definitely. And
yeah.
The best thing about this for me personally is it looks like it's only recently come out. It's like, what, September it came out?
Yeah, really recently.
And I'm really glad that the world seems to have been picking up on this type of stuff very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get the love of Hatterful Boyfriend or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. That just a big deal. It's pigeons, and then what do you know?
The secret of that game is it's very similar to this one, where it's not really about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then the world seems to be listening for a good phrase for it. It seems to be listening when people say, I can't tell you anything. Play this game. Yeah,
and I think we had talked about. I likened this when I was first trying to sell it to people. I likened it to Spec Ops: The Line of all things, where it's like, I think people understand. I know you will like this thing. You just need to play it, and I think the best two things work in this game's favor. One is that it's free. So everyone goes, oh, well, it's free. Okay, I'll try it. And the other thing is, maximum, you're going to spend 4 hours. You can play through a single playthrough in about 2 hours total. I did, but I read very quickly. And I spent another 2 hours getting the true ending. But I think you're right. I think this game owes itself a lot to the internet saying, you know what, screw it, I'll try it. And then what got me so interested is there was an article on, I think it was Kotaku, saying DDLC is one of the most surprising games this year and they went to go describe how I describe it, which is it isn't what it is. It looks like this very sunny visual novel. It's also, the developer says he wanted to introduce people to visual novels. And I haven't played a ton of visual novels, but this is a really great introduction. And part of what they said is, what it secretly is it's a terrifying horror game.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Because, when you watch the trailer, it starts off with, Team Salvato. This game is not appropriate for youngsters or anxiety or depression. And then it shows, the cutest video game ever with these dateable women. I was like, am I missing something here? And then when you play it, you're missing, the disgusting, depressing underbelly of this game.
Yep.
I think, sort of diving into it, I think the thing that the game does incredibly well is it spends easily an hour and a half doing nothing. You join the you're literally playing an anime show, or you're playing a standard visual novel. You're joining the literature club with your best friend, and you're making moves on the girl of your choice. And who was your lady of choice?
To steal, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Harder Than It Looks on Twitter. I can't remember
Elf.
Yes, there we go. He termed the phrase waifu for Yuri because everybody seems to pick Yuri.
I don't know why. I saw Yuri and I went, yeah, okay. I'll go with Yuri. That looks good.
I went with Yuri first. Also, probably helped by the fact that Quiet, very similar to my own thing, where I might do a podcast on the internet. You meet me in person, unless I know you well, I won't say 5 words to you. I'll say 2.
Right. Yeah, and I think the strength of the game is you spend so much time, you're setting up for the festival, but you start seeing the cracks, not immediately, but like when you pick who you want to prepare for the festival with, when you pick Yuri in our case, and I've played through one of the other ones, I played through Natsuki's one, which isn't as interesting. Yuri, you find out that she has a love of knives, and she talks romantically about them. It's sort of like, okay, that's not what I was expecting.
There is also some minor lines in that are real hints to what is going to happen in the future.
Right.
There's a couple of lines here and there where it's like, and that was actually my response when I started playing it was,
yeah, like,
I didn't like that line.
Yeah.
I didn't like that line.
And I think even then, when I was playing it, I didn't really know what the game was about, and I was playing it, I was sort of like, that's sort of weird. I don't know. Like, but you know, her writing was usually fairly dark, but she seemed pretty happy, and I really liked the unveiling that Sayori has struggled with depression. I was like, man, this is really good of this game to address this thing pretty maturely without saying like I'm just really sad. You know, it fairly addressed the topic, which I thought was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I do suffer from depression quite a lot, and I go through mood swings quite a lot, where I can go from really happy, having a good time, to horribly depressed in a couple of days. This time of year, particularly bad with seasonal affective disorder, which I believe I've mentioned on the show.
Winter is real rough with that.
Thank you, New York, for having really, really bad winters.
Yeah.
And the way she talks about depression is the best description for depression I've ever read that hasn't come out of a medical journal.
Right. Oh, God.
I was just going to say, she basically explains exactly what it feels like to be depressed, to have depression.
Right.
Nails it to such a T that, like, when that moment happens and she's talking to you about how horribly depressed she is and the reasons why she acts the way she is or the way she does, that moment is a case of, I kind of wish, like, I'd been able to explain that to some people I knew in my past. Right. To be able to say, to explain it that accurately and that effectively would come in so handy for a much younger version of me.
Right.
To be able to say, stop treating me the way you're treating me. I'm acting the way I'm acting because of this.
Yeah.
It's so well handled. I was very surprised by it.
And I like that how the game sets you up to be shocked is part of what she talks about. That is so the point she tries to make so strongly is, you know, I when it's bad, I don't want to get out of bed. Like, I just don't want to do anything. And I think that's sort of setting up the pins to knock them down later. When you go to her house, you're like, she must be having a really bad day. She didn't get out of bed. I'm just going to go drag her out of bed. And then the scene happens where the game flips. And you go in there and she's hung herself. And, like, instantly the music changes to, like, the warbling off key. And I was just like clicking through and seeing her. It's just a quick flash on the screen before everything starts getting staticky and weird and warbly. I was just like, oh, that's what this game is. And then immediately, the reason I love this game is when you get through that scene and it returns you back to the main menu. This is the very moment where I fell in love with this game. When Sayori's portrait is all garbled, and the continue button is garbled. And then when you click on it, anytime she's mentioned, it's all just like in gibberish.
Yep.
And every time she's mentioned, the screen flickers and gets snowy for a second, and then
occasionally during that flicker as well, you will just get a little flash of her image come up as well.
Yeah, and what I think is so interesting is that over the next maybe only 10 to 15 minutes, the game, you find out why later, but the game, every time she comes up, the game reshapes itself to write her out. And then pretty soon, you are joining the literature club because your friend Monica wanted you to, because they only had 3 members and they needed a 4th. And I was just like,
yep.
Pretty quickly, Sayori has just been completely removed from the game whatsoever. And I think,
out of curiosity, in the Sayori bedroom hanging incident, did you get the command prompt as well or not?
Yeah, that has to show up. It shows up in the background.
Yeah, because it shows up in the top left corner. The command prompt lines up, and it's like it does the c/ddlc/characters sayori.cht deleted.
Yep.
And that's when it kicks you back out to the main menu. It's like, okay, go ahead, start a new game.
And I think that's when I started to fall in love with this game. You know, I think, heavy topics aside, I think when you look, I love games like Metal Gear Solid 2, where it not only plays with the game, but it also plays with your expectations. Like, for the first 2 hours, it's like, all right, I'm sort of expecting something to happen. Like, this is very slow, and it's very plotting, and the writing is fine, but, you know, what are we doing here? And then as soon as the game flips like that, it's such a fast downhill descent.
Oh yeah, there's no stopping at that point. It is a full go boogie all the way to depression and anxiety town.
Yeah, and I it's so interesting, like, seeing the game rewrite itself and seeing the characters. You find out eventually being manipulated by Monica and being rewritten by her. Like, you see Yuri and what's the other name? The pink-haired Anatsuki. You see them start fighting with each other more and showing vastly different personalities from each other. And you and I went the Yuri route for the beginning, so Yuri eventually has that horrible portrait where you go outside and you catch her and you catch her cutting, and it's like there for half a second, and you're just like, wait, did I just see? Did that happen? Like, what's happening? And
it's not a minor thing either. It's a major portrait, like Flash. It's very, very disturbing to look at.
Yeah.
And again, a full credit to them for handling it as maturely as they did.
Yeah.
They didn't brush it off. They didn't pretend it wasn't a problem. They handled it about as well as they can, especially at that point when the game is actually busy breaking itself.
yeah, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, it's really well handled again, but again, it's really dark and I hate to use the same phrase multiple times, but I love it. It's a trigger factory, 100%.
It really is, yeah.
It's if you have bad things, this is going to kick off a fair few of them, possibly.
Yeah, it doesn't shy away from any of this stuff, even if it's going to be hard. Yeah, and I think what's so interesting, like, the game continues to impress from a breaking itself standpoint, because the game keeps spiraling down and down and down, and by the end, I like that Monica has deleted everything and everyone else from the game, and it's just you and her in that room, like that timeless classroom, and she's just talking to you about whatever. One of my favorite conversation pieces of her, because I read a lot of them in game.
So did I.
Was like, oh, you assume this took place in Japan, right? And I was sort of like, oh, yeah, I guess I did, actually. And then she's like, it could have happened anywhere. I never said where it was. And I was just like, my God, you didn't. That's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And by that point, I was like, all right, I'm going to exit out, and I'm going to come back in, and I'm just going to start back over. And I love that when you continue, she's just like, well, you can't leave. Like, I trapped you here. You can't save either. She says, well, that's not necessary anymore.
She also drops the line, she's on Twitter, and they have a Twitter account for Monica.
I did see that. That's really
and it's
good.
actually really good. It's like when the game started to get a fair bit of steam and a lot of people were talking about it, it looks like they logged into that account. I was like, all of a sudden everybody's talking about me and I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's like really nicely done.
Yeah, I played the Steam version, and I really like that near the end, she said, well, it was so easy to delete their character files. You just right-click on the game and do properties and browse to files, and it shows you all their character files. And
wow.
I just deleted them one by one. I was just like, oh, okay. Like, later I'm like, wow, they gave me a really big hint that I did not pick up on. You played the one you downloaded from their website, right?
Yep, I played the downloaded from the website version, which literally, it's such a tiny install. I installed it on my desktop because... I didn't really need to worry about saving it anywhere else. I wasn't going to dig through anything.
Yeah.
And it's literally the second file in. It's like DDLC, it's a file, and then it's the actual application.
Right.
And inside that file is the characters file. And she doesn't say right click on stuff. She just drops hints about dropping it, assuming that you know how to operate a file system on a computer.
Yeah.
But the way she drops it, and it's just like, yeah, it's just there in a folder. Everybody's character files just completely unprotected. It's not locked or anything. So I just went in and deleted it.
Yeah.
And the exact same thing happened on the Android, the Google Play Store on.
Oh, because you can browse files there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's the exact same thing. It was in the same folder as the launcher, and there's the characters file because my wife played it on Android.
Right. Yeah, I think my recommendation for playing it on PC still stands because I think as Monica starts to exert her influence over the game, I think the stuff they do with your mouse, where she's like, she wants you to pick her and the other two options are there. Every time you move your mouse, she just snaps it back to her option.
Wow, that didn't happen to me.
Oh, yeah. So, like, there's an option at some point when the game is nearly completely broken. You know, there's that scene that will probably become famous where it says only Monica, and every time you click on it, it zooms in and in and in. When the game restarts, it says Team Salvato, only Monica, Doki Doki Literature Club. There's also one where I kept trying to pick one of the other characters, and every time I would hover over them, it would snap my mouse down to Monica.
Yeah, that didn't happen for me.
Oh, okay.
What happened for me, it's the who are you going to read your poem to or who you're going to choose to do the activity with, and it gives you the three names. I clicked on Yuri, and every time I clicked on Yuri, it zoomed the screen in further and further and further until literally on the screen was just Monica's name. It was pixelated because the text block had like just zoomed in, and all you could see was like the tan color of the text block and Monica on the like dead center of the screen. Couldn't click anywhere else other than on her name.
Yeah, there's so much cool stuff they did with that. Like, since we picked the I think it always happens where Yuri stabs herself if you do or you don't confess your love to her, which was a genuinely shocking moment where I was like, all right, she's pretty unhinged, genuinely unsettled by the eye textures they were using, which looked like actual human eyes. Mm-hmm. And then, like, all of a sudden, she stabs herself 3 times, and I was just like, wait, what just happened? And then spends the entire weekend dying. And it's all the gibberish on screen. It's all like the thick black outline gibberish. And I really liked if you went into history, then you saw what she was actually saying, that Monica was actually saying.
Mm-hmm. I love that so much, that moment.
Yeah.
Especially when it makes you sit through day-night cycles. Yeah. Read through the day-night cycles. Yeah. At that point, I was just clicking because I was thinking, this is going to come to an end eventually. I'm just going to figure out when.
Yeah, I just hit the auto button and it just zoomed through. It's like one of the few times the auto button is unlocked for text you haven't seen already. Mm-hmm. And then when the game twists again, I had to look it up because I couldn't figure out how to break out of that loop. I could not believe that you went into the files and you deleted Monica's character file, who's the only character left. And when you fire the game back up, everybody's
portrait's
back
missing,
except for Monica. And then you start the game back over, and everything is normal except the person who's pulling the strings. You know, at the very beginning, talks to you and says, like, "Man, how could you do that? How could you delete me?" And then you just go through the game like normal, and everything's happy, and you get an ending.
Yes.
To me, that's one of those things where it's like, I really wish more people would try this and get all the way to the ending like that, because there are so few experiences where you have to go manipulate the game's files to be able to get to the ending, and the game knows that and expects you to do that and figures out, like, the amount of programming they had to do to get this to work is incredible.
Yeah.
And just to have it fire up and have the game know you did that and give you the right ending, like give you the good ending, was outstanding.
Yeah. It surprised me about how well it handled all of that stuff. And possibly my favorite thing is once you get the good ending, you load the game up and it's just a letter.
Yep.
And
it's the same letter again, where it's like, you're done, man.
Yeah. And it's like, script file could not be found. Please reinstall the game.
Yeah, they made a smart choice where there's a file in the directory called first run. If you delete that, it resets the game completely, all the way to the beginning. So I did that, and I went through to get the true ending, which I don't know if you went through to get.
I did not. I was in rough shape before I started playing this game. I was in worse shape after I started playing this game. I went on a tirade on Twitter attacking everybody who even might come in close to this. Mostly Boston, yes.
Yeah, what's so interesting about going through the true ending, I sort of don't think it's really worth it, but it takes maybe another 2 hours total. But what's really interesting is basically you play through the game 3 times, picking a different girl each time. Basically, to get the true ending, you have to get all of the CG scenes throughout one playthrough. And I think there's 9 of them. Basically, you play through each girl, but the day you get to where you go find Sayori having hung herself, before you leave to go to the house, you start a new game. So basically, you're gaming Monica's trying to game you by saying, and the game itself, DDLC itself, knows that you've seen those CG scenes. So every time you start a new game, you have a system file in the background saying, okay, well, they've already done X, Y, and Z. You're just sort of resetting the clock. And you do that 3 times, and then when you get to the ending where you're getting the credits, and in most playthroughs it's deleting the pictures while it's going through. Yep. All of them stay through, and by the time you get to the ending, afterwards you get a nice note from the developer that says, and it actually does look handwritten, that says, like, look, this game was a labor of love for us. We're a super small team. They're like 2 people and like 2 artists. You could have played a shooter, or you could have played an RPG, or you could have played any of these other really big games, and we really appreciate you taking the chance and playing this game of ours, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's like, that's really cool, because I really like when developers thank the players, and that seemed like a genuinely really heartfelt, like, you didn't have to take a chance on this game, and we really appreciate that you did.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, I'm not going to say free is the right price. I'm actually looking to donate or buy some merch from their shop.
Yeah, they have a $10 fan pack that gives you, like, the soundtrack and some CG and stuff, and it seems very much like, go buy that one or go pay for the game on their website, because I think, it's free or whatever price you say for. Yeah.
But no, they did a very smart thing by allowing it to be able to be played for free.
Yep.
Because by doing that, you've taken away that barrier to entry, which is what a lot of people would have stopped with.
Do you think playing it has gotten you interested in visual novels at all?
I've always kind of been interested in them, but my problem is I tend to start with the really silly ones. The first one I ever tried to do was the Disgaea visual novel on the PSP.
Yeah.
And Disgaea is a universe that's not exactly easy.
Yeah.
So that was probably a mistake.
Yeah.
But other than that, like the only one I've played is DDLC, and I do get interested in the other things, but I've never lived or had the available means to get them easily. I've got a friend of mine who lives in London who he's a big old weeaboo, he is. And he plays all of them, he loves playing them, he loves collecting them, but he also has like international versions of every single console and things like that to play them on. So until this generation, it's been way too hard to actually play them. So maybe now, sometime down the line, I'll get a PS4, and then before I know it, I've got you and Mina with a list of 52 games that I need to play.
Yeah, I was actually going to recommend, because if people are really interested in this and they want a visual novel that isn't fully a visual novel and it isn't fully a puzzle game, I would really recommend 999, 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors. I think that's a really great introduction to the series. There's a collection that came on PS4 that's been remastered. It's also out on PC now. All 3 games are... It's either... The first 2 games or all 3 games are like $45 on Steam right now, which is a really good price. I would recommend those. If you haven't played the Phoenix Wright games, those are also visual novels that focus...
there you go.
A little bit more on the puzzle than maybe the visual novel stuff. But I think if you liked... I have never played a visual novel that is as serious in tone as DDLC is. A lot more of them are about character growth, and bad endings do resemble stuff from DDLC, especially like, oh, you made a wrong choice, everybody died. And it was horribly gruesome. But that's not really the goal. I'd say if you enjoyed this, I would really recommend starting with something like 999 and sort of expanding from there. But yeah, this will release after our top 10, I believe. So
will it? Are we sure about this?
I can say at the very least it made my top 10, and I'm really happy to see a lot of people on Twitter all of a sudden seeing it on top 10 lists and playing it before their top 10 lists come out.
Yeah, I can't help but wonder about GB. I wonder if any of them played it, because if I'm honest, I kind of want Vinny to have played it.
Yeah, that'd probably be the best one.
I think he can sell that game to the rest of them.
Yeah. Yeah, It's really great to see so many people playing it and experiencing. I think, we talked a lot this year about Prey being a genuine surprise, and I think when you get down to it, Prey was surprising because it's a really good game. I think DDLC is genuinely surprising for what it is and what it isn't, and then how it Metal Gear Solid 2's itself.
Yes.
And I think we don't get games like this, and I think...
We don't get enough of them, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to have played it. It was probably one of the heaviest things I've played ever.
Yeah, I'm definitely right there with you.
Yeah, but like we said, I'm happy it took its subject matter seriously without being like, I'm sad, it wasn't... It really didn't pull any punches for better or for worse. And I think... That's a hell of a special thing, and it's cool to see something that couldn't be done in any other medium.
Yeah, I think I described it as I love it. I genuinely love it as an experience. It's not necessarily an enjoyable one.
Yeah, it's like watching Requiem for a Dream. We're like, that was really good. I never want to see that again.
Trainspotting. Same.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, that was a fantastic experience that I'm happy to put behind me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, anything you want to talk about before we close out here?
No, not really. I mean, I think we've said everything we can about it. Like, the game is fantastic. Like, it genuinely is. It got reactions from me in a way that video games haven't got reactions from me in a long time.
Yeah.
Not since Would You Kindly have I basically stood up and thrown my controller across the room and gone, nope, walking away from this right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for everyone listening or watching this Spoilercast. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
So, you know how I've been, like, practicing piano and stuff? And not really any good at it yet, like, at all. But I wrote you a song, and I was kind of hoping that I could show it to you, because I worked really, really hard on it. So, yeah. Every day I imagine a future where I can be with you. In my hand is a pen that will write a poem of me and you. The ink flows down into a dark puddle. Just move your hand right the way into his heart. But in this world of infinite choices, what will it take just to find that special day? What will it take just to find that special day?